Okay, we're picking up with Unit 1, Lesson 8 on parabolas, and we're starting with example 3. So in this problem, we need to graph the equation x plus y squared equals 4y minus 1. And what we're going to do first is we're going to take the equation and try to write it in the form x equals a times y minus k squared plus h. And you'll recognize this is basically the vertex form of an equation. But normally we have y over here where x is, and normally we have x. You'd normally have x over here where the y is. Sorry about that last sound, the fire alarm just went off. So what we're going to do with this equation is we're going to take everything on the left side that is not the x, because we're trying to get the x by itself. We're going to move the y squared over to the right side. And when we move the y squared to the right side, it becomes negative. And then we're going to go through the process of factoring out the first two terms, seeing what they have in common, and then we're going to be completing the square. So we notice each of these would have a factor of -1 in common. If you take the -1 out of each one of them, you will have y squared minus 4y. The reason this is minus is because if you have -1 times -4, that would give you this +4 back up here. And then this -1 is just out on the right side. So then we're going to look at our b term, which is -4. We're going to take half of it, which is -2, and square it. -2 squared is 4. So right here we're going to put a 4. And remember that that's -1 times 4, so it's actually a -4, even though it says +4 in here. So we've got -4 over here. We're going to, that means outside, if we put this 4 over here again, we have another -4, -1 times 4 again, but realize it's minus that. So two minus signs make a plus sign. So we are actually, even though it looks like a -4, we're actually adding 4 on the outside. We have -1 times 4, that's -4 on the left side, and we have +4 over here on the right side. So when we simplify this stuff in the parentheses, that would be, it just simplifies to the y minus the b over 2. Remember, b was -4, so b over 2 is -2. So we've got y minus 2 squared, and then all of this stuff on the outside, all of this stuff right here, simplifies into +3. So that tells us that our vertex sits at, you would think this would say 2, 3, but it's actually 3, 2, because when you switch the y and the x, like normally the equation would say y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. But when we switch the x and the y, it also switches the h and the k. So now when you have the y in here, this is actually your k value, and this 3 out here is your h value. And that's why they say over here that the vertex is 3, 2. So when we go to graph this, our basic equation is x equals y squared, which is a parabola, but because the y and the x are switched, instead of the parabola facing up or down, it now faces left or right. And this one, because it's positive, is going to face to the right. So it's going to look something like that, where the vertex sits at 3, 2, and the axis of symmetry is y equals 2, since k is 2 up here. And then we can find out the formula for the focus, the location of the focus, by using the formula at the beginning of the lesson. And we can also find out the directrix by using the formula at the beginning of the lesson. And we can find out the length of the latus rectum, which is over here, absolute value of 1 over -1, which is just 1. Okay, so when we go to graph this, I'm going to put the points on here that have the most important things. 3 comma 2 is our vertex. That is actually, it's already labeled on here, but it's this dot right here in black. Your focus is this point right here to the left, 11 comma 4, 11 fourths comma 2. Your axis of symmetry goes through the horizontal line y equals 2. Your directrix is this vertical line now, where x equals 3 1/4. And the length of the latus rectum is just 1. The latus rectum is basically just the distance. If you were going to draw, let's draw a line on here so you guys can see this. If we were going to draw a line from the parabola through the focus, a straight vertical line, the length of that green line is 1. That's what the latus rectum is. Another way that you can find the length of that is for a parabola. This only works for parabolas. It doesn't work for other shapes. But it's always 4p, and that, for you to use that formula, p is going to equal the distance from the focus to the vertex. So for this problem, the vertex was at the point 3 comma 2, and the focus was at 11 fourths. If we think about 11 fourths, the distance from 11 fourths to the number 3, 3 is the same as 12 over 4. So if you think about how far do you have to move to get from 11 fourths to 12 fourths, you should realize that's just 1/4, and 4 times 1/4 is 1. That's another way that you can get the latus rectum. Okay, part B of example 3, we're going to graph y equals 2x squared plus 10 equals 8x plus 5. So this time we're going to want to move everything over to the right side and get y by itself. So when we do that, on the right side, we're going to end up with negative 2x squared plus 8x minus 5. Then we're going to look at the first two terms and see what they have in common. And we notice they each have a negative 2, and we're going to pull the negative 2 out. And when we do that, we are left with x squared minus 4x. So we're going to take half of that number, negative 2, and square it. So that's 4. Notice that's negative 2 times 4, which is negative 8. So we have a negative 8 inside, which means we need a positive 8 on the outside. The parentheses, the perfect square, simplifies into x minus 2 squared, and negative 5 plus 8, all of this stuff right here, that just becomes your positive 3. So now we've got our equation in vertex form. We are going to look at the vertex, which is 2 comma 3 now, the axis of symmetry, which would be x equals 2, the focus and the directrix, we're just using the formulas for those, and then the length of the latus rectum, using the formula for that. And we know that this opens down because the a value was negative 2 from the previous slide. So when you graph it all together, this is what it should look like. Okay, here's one for you guys to check your progress on. In this problem, we have x minus y squared equals 6y plus 2. The x is the thing that you're going to want to get by itself, so you want to bring the y squared over. So work on that as long as you need. When you have your answer, come back and advance to the next slide. And the answer this time is A. Part B, for checking our progress, we've got y plus 2x squared plus 10 equals 16x minus 20. You're going to want to get y by itself this time, so move the 2x squared and the 10 over. When you have your answer, go on and advance to the next slide. And this time our answer again is A. Okay, for example 4, what we're going to do is focus on writing an equation of a parabola with given some specific information. So we have to write an equation for a parabola with a vertex of 8, 6 and a focus of 2, 6, and then we're going to graph the equation. So here's what we're going to do first. It says since the y-coordinate of the vertex and the focus is both 6, the equation of the parabola is going to be of this form. Whenever the y values match, you're going to want to use that form. And we're going to need to find a, h, and k. Since the vertex is at 8, 6, that means the h value is 8 and the k value is 6. And we're going to use the formula for the focus to find our a value. So we know the formula for the focus is x equals h plus 1 over 4a. We know that x is 2, because that's our focus value, our x value in the focus. We know that h is 8 from what we already found. And then we're just going to solve this for a. So we're going to have to subtract 8 from each side, and then we're going to cross multiply. We'll see that on the next slide. Right here, we cross multiplied, and then divide by negative 24, and you get a is negative 1 over 24. So looking at our equation now, we have x equals a, which is negative 1 over 24, y minus k squared plus h. This is our equation, negative 1/24, y minus 6 squared plus 8. Notice over here, let's draw some stuff on the graph. Our vertex is sitting at 8, 6 right here. And our axis of symmetry would go through y equals 6, this horizontal line like so. It's not perfectly straight, I'm doing the best I can. So that's what our graph looks like. The focus 2, 6, that's over here. Every point, oh, Schoolmax did it to me again. Every point on this parabola is equidistant from that focus and the direction, which would be way over here somewhere. Okay, for checking our progress, we need to write an equation for a parabola that has a vertex of 4, 3 and a focus of 1, 3. Do your work on a separate sheet of paper. When you have your answer, come on back and advance to the next slide. All right, our answer for this one is A. We got an A value of negative 1/12. We got a K value of 3 and an H value of 4. That's just coming straight from the vertex. All right, we're going to pick up with example 5 in the next video.